大家好，这里是古墓中文站。我们非常有幸请到水晶动力的高级社区经理 Meagan Marie 来采访。First, we're going to say thank you to Crystal Dynamics on behalf of the Chinese fans. Rise of the Tomb Raider received a lot of positive criticism in China too. In China, Tomb Raider doesn't get on hot news that much, but Rise of the Tomb Raider literally made a difference. Localizing the text, voiceover, and dialogue is a huge reason why. So will the later games have the same level of localization like this time?
It's hard to answer because we're not really focusing on the later games just yet, right? So we're still working on finishing getting out Rise of the Tomb Raider on other platforms and so on, and the Rise launch and DLC and the season pass and so on. But the hope would be we would certainly hope that we would be able to continue to support, because we know it's been so well received, and it's just wonderful to hear the fan feedback. They seem to appreciate it so much, so it's great.
Yeah, so seriously, in China, we are very thrilled to see that Rise have Chinese dialogues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so was Crystal Dynamics a part of this, or Microsoft just took care of everything?
Well, Microsoft was our publisher this time around, and so a lot of the expansion of the languages we were able to support is because of them, and they have a huge global reach, and so they were able to help us support not only just the voiceover and the simplified and traditional Chinese, but we also had voice for Brazilian Portuguese this time, and we have a huge fan base in Brazil, so they were just ecstatic about that. And we were able to do Latin American Spanish, which is something that, you know, people who speak Spanish in the Central America and South America were very excited about. So really, the partnership with Microsoft is what allowed us to have more language support this time.
So how did you guys pick out other voices of Lara Croft?
I wasn't overly involved in that process, but I do know that it was spearheaded by Microsoft and their localization teams, and they went to the local offices to get feedback and so on. And I think that our team, the higher-ups, had some final approval, but they looked for very similar qualities in what they found in Camilla in terms of the range of acting and so on. So I think that was one of the goals, but it seems like everybody's been pretty happy with the voice actors. So are you happy with the voice actresses?
Yeah, I'm very happy about the voice actresses.
I actually haven't had a chance to hear the Chinese, and so I'm going to go and listen later. Jen said it's fantastic. She says it's so cool to hear, so I'm going to go and play later and check it out.
Okay, great. Another question. A lot of fans bought Xbox One because of Rise and add us on Weibo, the Chinese Twitter. Suddenly, everybody started to show off their new consoles for the time being. Yeah, and it's awesome. And we found that a part of them were like totally upset of the exclusivity of Rise of the Tomb Raider at the beginning, but it seemed all of us had lost to Microsoft this time. So can you tell us how and what did Microsoft do to help the team of Crystal so it could make the fans feel a little bit better?
So, like I had just mentioned, one of the big benefits to the partnership with Microsoft was the localization and the larger reach globally. They were able to help us localize the game in more languages, and that was something that was really beneficial, we think, to our fans around the world. Some of the other things is when you have a exclusive platform, when you go exclusive on a console, you're able to better tailor the game towards a specific console and make it, you know, the most solid and stable game possible for that console. And it was, you know, I know the team would reach out to having the hardware architects at your fingertips and being able to say, you know, we really want this feature, but we need to figure out a way to optimize it, or we need to troubleshoot something, and being able to reach out to the people at Microsoft that actually work on the hardware and work with them on that was something that was really great. And I know there was a lot of back and forth and communication that we worked very closely with them. One of the other big things is user testing. So we have a small user testing office at Crystal Dynamics, and so we'll invite people in locally to come and test the game periodically and so on to get feedback. But there's a huge user test pool with Microsoft and Xbox. So we constantly had people playing the game in large numbers and giving us feedback, and it allowed us to really adjust the game as we were developing in terms of, you know, is this story point making sense? Is this resonating? Is this feature working? Is this too hard? Is this too easy? And so that constant feedback, being able to use their larger user test pool, was something that I think helped fine-tune the game quite a bit, and it helped it become what we think is the best Tomb Raider game we've ever made. So we're really proud of it.
Did the cooperation with Microsoft shorten the time of the development this time?
I think it definitely helped the development, but I think the shortened time frame was actually more due to the fact that this wasn't the original reboot and origin story. Setting that foundation and trying to figure out, agonizing over what's the best way to reboot the character, what's the best way to take the franchise, that's what made the reboot longer in terms of the development cycle. But we were taking a lot of the features that we established in the reboot and really expanding them. So survival was a theme in the last game, and now we really pushed it to be a mechanic and for it to feed back into the game with the hunting and the crafting and so on. So those sorts of things, building upon the groundwork that we did in the last game, allowed it to iterate faster and to improve faster.
Okay, so did the collaboration with Microsoft really reduce the stress of the development?
I think that any game development cycle is going to be stressful, to be totally truthful. But I think that the partnership did help ease a lot of the process, and so that was beneficial. And on my end, in a community standpoint, it's the reason that I was able to come out to a lot of countries that I haven't been able to visit before. So, getting to meet fans in China, getting to meet fans in the Czech Republic, because we have a huge fan base there. Things that you don't necessarily know that aren't like the key territories that you get to visit very often. So that was something that was really wonderful for me in particular.
Our website has been there for 11 years, and we've seen the transition of Chinese gamers. In many years ago, China was a place full of pirated games, softwares, and everything, But lately, Chinese fans seem to started to, buying games and consoles. So it's really awesome. So what do you think of that?
I think that's fantastic. I mean, obviously, it's going to be good for encouraging the health of the industry in China, the gaming. Whether it's people importing games or playing games from other developers. And also I think it would encourage people to create more games in China itself if the industry is booming and consoles are growing and so on. So I think that's good for everyone.
Will Crystal be working at the PC and PlayStation 4 version of the Rise of the Tomb Raider, or it's gonna be done by other studios like your partner Nixus?
Yeah, so we don't have any news on those versions just yet. We have said that PC is coming out early 2016 and PlayStation 4 is holiday 2016. So we are getting close to news. That's all I can say. But when we announce, we'll share a lot more details about the development and so on.
That's very understanding. So do we have the correct date of the PC version of the game now?
Early 2016 is what we've said for now.
Okay.
That's all we've announced.
That's all. So Amazon says the PC version will be released at the April Fool's Day. Is it trustworthy?
We haven't announced any dates. So sometimes retailers will put placeholder dates, and that's a fairly common practice. So I wouldn't put stock in that because we haven't announced anything as a studio yet.
Yeah, that's understanding. Yeah, I know. Let's talk about the games now. Tomb Raider 2013 have some clues about Rise of the Tomb Raider, right? So was Rise of the Tomb Raider was being written at the time when, TR 2013 was being published?
We tend to focus primarily on the game that we're working on at that point in time, but we do look to the future in that we know what we want to happen with Lara's growth. Excuse me. So we know that, the first game she's a survivor, and the second game we knew that we wanted her to start embracing her destiny as a Tomb Raider. So it's really more of the high overview, and there's probably ideas about where we want to take her, what myths we want to explore, and so on, which allows us to drop a few clues or a few hints. But the main development doesn't start until one project closes. It's better for us to just fully focus on one project and make it the best we can, and then move on.
So you basically have the future and whole concept of the next game before.
We have ideas. Yes, we have ideas where we want to go.
So because we have seen some news about this new game, and it seems like a trilogy. So is it true?
I can't confirm that because we haven't made any announcements, but we'd be remiss to not do more with Lara, wouldn't we? So it'd be a wasted opportunity if we didn't continue her journey. But I can't confirm anything.
I know. So I'm so sorry about asking that.
I can confirm, but not confirm. It's such a we hinted at Lara's future adventures at the end of the game, but there's no news. We haven't made any formal announcements yet.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about old games and new games. Yeah. So we've noticed that there are some similarity scenes in Rise of the Tomb Raider, kind of close to the CG of The Last Revelation. So. Also, the ice tunnels in Rise are pretty close to some areas in Tomb Raider 2 Golden Mask. Yeah. So do you know, is that a coincidence or Crystal are paying tributes or something?
I think that a lot of what we try to find ways on a larger scale to pay tribute to the classics, and so some of that is things just like very specific things like bringing back traps. You know, traps is something that is very classic and nostalgic, and so we want to do that. But then there's other things that you might notice and you might not, like the backpack that Lara leaves behind in the Jeep when she's escaping the Jeep in Syria. Looks a little familiar, if you ask me. So there's things like that we do like to play homage to the classics. I actually love the opening scene of Rise with Lara and Jonah climbing the mountain because it reminds me of the opening of the original Tomb Raider. Yeah, it reminds me of the opening there and that big reveal that it's Lara, you know, when Lara turns and you see it's her for the first time, and then in Rise you see her take down her hat. And, you know, so those are the moments that we certainly want to make you feel nostalgic.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about the new DLC. So is this newest DLC called Baba Yaga, the Temple of the Witch?
Yes.
Seems like a all new story.
Yes, so it is. It's hours. It's at least 3 hours of new content. So it's really exciting, and I really, from a tonal standpoint, enjoy it because it's very different from the main campaign. And Baba Yaga is a very kind of unnerving, creepy myth. You know, it's a little unsettling. The myth is about this, you know, old witch that lives in the woods and a house with chicken legs. It's very strange. And so the way that the narrative team and the team has found a way to make both the gameplay and the narrative match in this kind of unsettling, creepy way is good. It's really interesting. I think you'll like it.
So it's kind of scary.
I think it's a little scary, but it's just cool to see Lara in that new situation.
So back in Tomb Raider Underworld, Crystal used Lara's shadow to replace Lara for players to play so they can bring a different kind of gaming experience for us. So is this new DLC is attempt of something like that?
Not in terms of replacing Lara, because I mean you're definitely still playing as Lara, but it's the new DLC is definitely a unique. Oh, I don't want to spoil anything. But it's a unique take. Like I said, both from a narrative standpoint and from a gameplay perspective, it really is something very fresh. And it's something that when you have DLC, you can have a little bit more fun and you can do something a little bit more out of the ordinary because you've already told Lara's journey in Rise of the Tomb Raider. She's had that growth, she's completed her journey and drawn to a close. And so now you can do something that's a little bit more unique and kind of pushes the boundaries more.
So when the team has a new idea, how do you guys test it? I know the story you told me about you being Lara. Can you tell us the story again?
Which story?
The voice demos.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's pretty awesome, so
Yeah, so, well, internally, whenever we have a new concept we want to test, we start internally. So we just ask the team, we send out emails, we put out surveys, what do you think of this? The team is very open to suggestions and collaborations and so on. On a larger scale, you know, when you have a game concept, you test it at every level. So you test the concept. Does this concept seem interesting? Do these characters seem interesting? And so on. So those are things externally you would do. But when it comes to specifics to things like dialogue or the overall narrative of something like the DLC, they actually have people internally do the voices, and so I do Lara's voice internally for testing purposes. I do not speak with a British accent because it would be terrible. I would do a terrible job. But we have someone else who will read as Jonah and someone else who would read as Sophia and so on. And we reuse those people over and over internally, and that's a way of testing the script. So they put our voices into the game as we're building it, and then we can listen to it and we can see, does this line of dialogue work? Does this tone work? If not, we can change the line, re-record it, or change the tone. Should this be more angry? Should this be more, subtle, or so on? And then that allows us to really nail how we want to do the presentation, so that when we send it off to the final voice actors, we don't have to do re-recording sessions. So we have the tone, we have the final dialogue, and so on. So it is really fun. I think it's kind of fun to run around screaming Jonah in the game, in the sound booth and so on. So there's sometimes that Brent Adams, our art director, he's actually a really good voice actor, and so he and I would read sometimes and just be yelling at each other in one of the rooms, and it's kind of fun.
Okay, so cool. So which game have you played of Tomb Raider, and which one is your favorite?
I've played all of them. I haven't played a couple of like the mobile ones, the pure mobile ones. I don't think I've played those. But
just consider those, those mainstream.
yes, I've played all of the main ones. I've been playing since 1996, the very beginning. I do not choose favorites because I think they're too different. My favorite classic game from Core Design is Tomb Raider 2, primarily because of the Wreck of the Maria Doria. I love that level, in Venice. Oh, so amazing. My favorite current game is Rise of the Tomb Raider. I think that it just encapsulated everything that I wanted, and seeing Lara's growth was just amazing. Seeing her accept her destiny as the Tomb Raider, I was just rooting for her the whole time. I loved it.
So goodbye, Meagan. I think it's time to end this. So I'm so happy to have you in China here, and I'm so lucky. You get me in this expo. I'm so lucky to have you.
It's so wonderful, and it's been wonderful to have a chance to finally meet the Chinese fans. And thank you so much for your hard work at the fan site. So, 谢谢.
Oh, 谢谢你 too.
Chengdu?
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, good. Testing. I was at last week, so yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us here. Yeah, thank you.